content warning. That's what remains of the former lunatic asylum on Blackwell Island. We're going to talk through the history of mental health treatments or mistreatments in New York City. So before the asylum, when the city was an itty-bitty baby city, early 1700s, mental health issues were largely seen as a religious issue or like a moral issue. It was a spiritual failing to struggle with your mental health. And so it was often treated with shame or punishment or exorcism. And while that did successfully convince people to hide any problem they might have, it was not effective as a treatment. If mental health issues were seen as medical issues, they were largely viewed through the since disproven humoral theory, which supposed that it is an imbalance of humors or bodily fluids that affect a person's mental health. Melancholia, for instance, or what today we might see as depression, was seen as an excess of the fluid black bile, and thus was treated with bloodletting or laxatives to rid the body of that foul humor. This was again ineffective and very unpleasant for everyone involved. Except that guy. That guy seems to be enjoying it. I don't know what his deal is. I'm going to guess that he's the husband. So when someone did really need help, hopefully they had a family that was willing and able to help them. Otherwise, maybe it would have been the church or a religious institution to step in and help. Otherwise, it might have just been the jail. When the city opened its first almshouse or home for the poor, 1730s, there was space for people with mental health issues, but the focus was still mostly on containment rather than treatment. Now, containment turned to isolation in the early mid-1800s when the almshouse and other similar institutions like the workhouse, a smallpox hospital, they were largely removed from Manhattan Island and rebuilt out here on Blackwell Island, or what's called Roosevelt Island today. The octagon, that structure right there, that served as the main entrance to the former lunatic asylum. They let you walk in there. They will not let you take photos or videos inside, but I assure you, it is very creepy. Now, it was not originally designed to be what was later called a human rat trap, but it was grossly overcrowded, severely underfunded. A sort of saying emerged that anything that could have made a person's mental health worse was tried as a potential cure. And since this was out of sight, out of mind for most people, the abuses that patients suffered here went largely unnoticed for decades. It wasn't until Nellie Bly, OG icon of undercover journalism. Bly feigned mental illness to gain acceptance into the asylum. Despite the fact that she behaved entirely sound of mind upon her arrival, doctors saw that as a sign of her sure insanity and nonetheless abused her. Thankfully, the editor of her newspaper sprung her after only 10 days, but the explosive expose she wrote brought international attention to the mistreatment of patients here and elsewhere. That did ultimately lead to the closure of this facility, which was a step in the right direction. Another big step at around that same time, Sigmund Freud and others developed psychotherapy, talk therapy, which is considered to be widely effective for a range of issues. But 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Dangerous, invasive medical procedures like lobotomies that included severing connections in a patient's brain continued well into the 1960s. By that point, we had made a massive leap with psychiatric medications, pharmaceuticals, antidepressants, antipsychotics. While not 100% effective for everything 100% of the time, with pharmaceutical therapy coupled with other therapies like talk therapy, we're finally starting to see the ingredients to make a recipe for success. This is 1950s, 60s, 70-ish years ago, so shockingly recent in the grand scheme of things. Good news, bad news with that, because so many people were finally getting adequate help, there was less need for big institutions like this, and there was a push to close them, with the idea that smaller, community-based outpatient facilities would be more effective anyway. And while that likely is true, those smaller facilities were very often overcrowded, underfunded, or in some cases, simply never built. So for folks that still were not receiving adequate help, that meant an increase in homelessness or a return to jail. It's estimated that about 75% of the people experiencing homelessness in New York City today are also suffering from a mental health issue. Our understanding of mental health and proper treatment continues to develop every single day. We're understanding it now not just as a medical issue, but also a social issue, a community issue, a political issue. One thing we know for certain is that it is a very widespread issue. Mental health issues are nothing to be ashamed of, and they need to be taken seriously. A friend of mine from my uni days had been navigating a tough terrain with their mental health, and recently their journey ended way too soon. And I'm mad about it. If I'm being honest with you, I'm mad about it. I'm mad at the ridiculous stigma that prevented us from studying this and talking about it for so long. I'm mad that it is so hard and expensive to get good help. I'm mad at the society that makes maintaining mental health harder for certain folks, especially folks in the LGBTQIA community, especially folks in the immigrant community, especially folks who are my friends. I'm mad. And I would like to speak to a manager. I cannot speak for Diana, but I imagine that they would not encourage entertaining anger for too long. I imagine that they would prefer anger be turned into art. For me, art often takes the form of a history lesson. So I got a two-parter. One, history had never before imagined and will never again dream up another Diana O. They were a transcendent creator, a magnetic advocate with the courage of a Nellie Bly, but with a little dash of Prince. They saw the world in technicolor and covered in glitter. Every moment was intensely present. Every thought a revelation, every action profoundly personal. They were undeniably, unapologetically, fearlessly themselves. History will never know another you. You are the greatest you, the best you there's ever been and ever will be. You are so valuable. You are worthy. And you are enough, exactly as you are. Please, don't deprive the world of the best you, the greatest you we will ever have. If you ever need help, ThroughlineCare.com can connect you with a professional in over 150 different countries. If you're in the US or Canada, you can dial 988 to speak with someone right now. The Trevor Project is there for LGBTQ plus youth. And if you know other good resources, please leave them in the comments. Different types of help can help different people. We've come a really long way from our haunted asylum days. That's actually residences now, which that to me feels like bad humor. We cannot rewrite our history, but we can learn from it. We can try to do right by it. We can tell our friends we love them, and we can work to make sure that tomorrow it gets better. I'll see you tomorrow.